Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today, I want us to take some deep time together to explore the most fundamental foundation of A Course in Miracles. A foundation that, if you don't understand it, honestly, you won't understand anything about the Course. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. This sentence is more than a poetic introduction. It's a powerful, radical, and liberating metaphysical statement. It is, quite literally, the summary of the entire course. We're going to break it down, understand it, live it, and most importantly, experience it. We'll go layer by layer, experience by experience, so it doesn't stay in the realm of theory. Because this course is not an intellectual path, it is a living experience. And if you're open to it, it could change everything. Part 1. The Illusion of Suffering. First, I want you to think of something that's hurting you right now. It could be a memory, a betrayal, a worry about the future. Think about it. Now I'm going to tell you something that might make your ego want to run away. That thing that hurts you is not real. And before you close this talk and think this is about denying pain, it's not that. It's about understanding its origin. The Course tells us that suffering doesn't come from what happens. It comes from your interpretation of what happens. The egoic mind reinterprets reality through the lens of separation. It sees guilt where there is none. It sees loss where there's only change. It sees attack where there's only a call for love. Imagine someone doesn't respond to your WhatsApp message. Your mind might interpret it as, they don't care, they're ignoring me, or even, they must be mad at me. But maybe that person is dealing with something personal, in a hospital, or simply forgot to reply. The ego always jumps to the most painful interpretation. But the Course invites us to see beyond that. Think about a time you felt ignored or misunderstood. That sense of injustice, the urge to explain yourself or defend yourself. The ego wants you to fight to prove you're right. But Spirit says, nothing real can be threatened. Sometimes we believe that if someone rejects us, it means something about us. The ego says, if they don't choose you, you're not worthy. But the Course says, your worth is not determined by anyone's decisions. When you lose a job, the ego says, you've failed. But the Course reminds you, your function here is not to accumulate successes. It is to forgive. It is to remember. We suffer because we believe the world has the power to define us, to validate us, to hurt us. But what actually hurts is not what happens. What hurts is your attachment to the idea that what happens defines you. And that attachment often comes from way back. From when we were children and someone told us not to cry, to be strong, that failing was bad, that making mistakes was shameful. That unconscious programming is still active, and it's the ego running it. Every time something feels like a wound from the past, the ego uses it to reinforce its story. See? They left you again. But the Course doesn't ask you to fight those memories, only to observe them without judgment, to hand them over, to recognize, this is not what I am. Another subtle way we suffer is by trying to control. The ego wants to make sure everything goes the way it expects. If someone doesn't act as you imagined, you feel frustrated. If something doesn't go according to plan, it hurts. But the pain comes from believing you knew how things should go. Peace comes when you let go of that control. When you stop thinking you know how things are supposed to be. When you allow life to surprise you. And there, in the midst of the unexpected, the Course reminds you, you don't need to understand everything. Just trust. Even when pain seems justifiable, like the death of someone, the Course invites you to look beyond appearances. To remember that what is real doesn't die, that love is never lost, that true connection remains intact, and that suffering comes from thinking the body was the only thing that connected you. So it's not about ignoring pain or pretending nothing happened. It's about changing the lens through which you see it. It's about letting go of the identification with the ego that suffers and choosing the perspective of spirit that simply observes with love. If you're open to this, even suffering becomes a doorway, an invitation to look within, to ask, what am I believing that's causing this pain? That's where true healing begins. And one more thing, the ego is always looking for someone to blame. If you can't blame someone else, it makes you blame yourself. That's why suffering often comes with guilt. I should have done it differently, or I always mess everything up. But the Course frees us from that trap. It reminds us that all our mistakes are not sins, but simply errors. Errors that can be corrected with love. Nothing needs punishment, only light. When we see suffering as a sign that something is wrong with us, we fall back into ego. But when we see it as an opportunity to release beliefs, to forgive, to remember love, suffering loses its purpose. We are not here to suffer. We are here to awaken. And sometimes pain is the alarm clock that calls us to wake up. So next time something hurts, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask instead, what can I release here? What thought is causing this pain? And what happens if I let it go? Because when you surrender your interpretation, the miracle happens. You see the same thing, but it no longer hurts. That's where real freedom begins. Part 2. The ego and its obsession with threat. The ego is a thought system. It believes you are separate from God, that you are alone, and that you must defend yourself from the world. And that's why it perceives everything as a threat. From small gestures to major events, everything becomes an emotional survival battle. The future. What if I don't make it? Rejection? What if they leave me? Mistakes. What if I mess up? But the Course offers you another vision, the vision of the Holy Spirit, a part of you that doesn't react from fear, but from certainty. The ego believes love is conditional. The Spirit remembers that love is what you are. Think of the times you've avoided saying how you feel out of fear of rejection. The ego wants you to stay silent. It wants you to edit your heart. But Spirit says, what is real cannot be harmed. You've made mistakes in public and felt like your world was falling apart. The ego screams, failure, embarrassment. But the Course invites you to look with love. You are eternal. Your worth is not in your performance. It is in your being. The ego wants to make everything personal, but Spirit knows that nothing is personal. The other person is looking at their own mirror. If they judge you, they're not seeing you. They're projecting their own pain. The ego has a voice that feels urgent. It always speaks first, speaks loudly, and demands immediate reactions. It says things like, this can't be, this is unfair, this must not be allowed. But that urgency isn't wisdom. It's fear. It's defense. It's separation. The Holy Spirit, on the other hand, is a gentle voice. It doesn't force, doesn't shout, doesn't push. It waits. And when you're willing, it reminds you, you can see this differently. Anytime you feel like something external is affecting you too much, pause. Not because you have to fix it, but to remember that maybe you're listening to the wrong system, and you can choose again. The ego also wants you to stay on alert, always in defense mode. That's why it makes you overanalyze, anticipate everything, and distrust others. It believes that if you're in control, you'll be safe. But the more you listen to it, the more it drains you. Have you ever replayed a conversation over and over? What you said, what they understood, what you should have said? That mental noise is the echo of the ego. It's not your guide. It's not your truth. It's just a distraction tactic. And the most curious thing is that the ego is also afraid of love, because real love can't be controlled, bargained with, or manipulated. True love, the kind that comes from your being, doesn't need to win, protect, or convince. And that terrifies the ego because it means it's death. But for you, it's not a death. It's the beginning of freedom. When you hand a situation over to the ego, you're saying, I'm going to handle this alone. I'll judge this based on the past. But when you hand it over to spirit, you're saying, I won't decide alone. I won't judge this through the past. I want to see with God's mind. That is what the Course calls a miracle. The shift in perception from fear to love. And you don't need to know how to do it. You just need to be willing. You just need to say, I don't understand this, but I'm willing to see it differently. The ego will never agree with that. It'll tell you you're being naive, that you need to defend yourself, that someone else is to blame. But every time you choose not to follow that voice, you are undoing the ego's thought system. And that is what you came here to do. You didn't come to convince anyone. You didn't come to accumulate achievements. You came to remember who you are. And for that, you need to stop reacting from an identity that isn't real. Your true self is not threatened. Your essence needs no defense. Only the ego believes it's in danger, because it is an illusion. When you learn to see this clearly, there's no need to attack or defend. You only need to choose again. Breathe, surrender, and allow Spirit to show you the truth. That is what sets us free from fear. Part 3. Who you are cannot be touched. This cannot threaten what I am. That phrase, though simple, is a shield of light. Not against the world, but against the lie you told yourself about who you are. Make this phrase your daily mantra. Write it down. Repeat it. And most of all, live it. When someone criticizes you, when you make a mistake, when you feel like you failed, pause, breathe, and remember, they are not attacking your true self. They're only brushing up against a false identity you believed yourself to be. Many of us have spent years building an identity based on achievements, image, control, charm, charisma, or knowledge. But the Course tells you that none of that is who you are, and that can be scary. Because if I'm not all that, then who am I? You are the Son of God, just as you were created, without a story, without lack, without wounds, not as a nice spiritual concept, but as a living truth. But to remember that, you have to let go of defense. If someone says you're not enough and it hurts, it's because a part of you is asking to be healed, not to be strengthened, but to be released. The ego wants you to react, to defend, to attack back. But the Course says, choose again. You've been criticized, and inside something shakes. But that shaky part is not yourself. It's the image you believed you were. Yourself doesn't need to defend itself. Yourself doesn't feel threatened. Yourself watches with love. You didn't achieve that dream you wanted so badly. The ego sees it as failure. The Course sees it as correction. Nothing is lost. It is only redirected. Remember, the ego feeds on internal conflict. It wants you to compare, to believe you're at a disadvantage, that you need to change something about yourself to deserve love. But the love you deserve is already given, because what you are is already whole. Yourself is invulnerable. It is beyond the body, beyond the past, beyond anyone's opinion. No one can touch what you truly are. There is no word, no judgment, no situation that can alter your essence. And when you identify with it, you stop living in defense. There is great peace in knowing you don't have to protect yourself, that you don't have to prove anything, that there is nothing to justify, because what you are needs no defense. What you are already is. Imagine someone says to you, I don't like you, and you feel a knot in your stomach. The ego starts making lists of reasons, attacks, justifications. But you can pause, breathe, and tell yourself, this cannot threaten what I am. And if today you did something you think was wrong, if you yelled, if you felt fear, if you made a mistake, don't punish yourself. The Course doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for honesty. To look at the mistake without judgment and say, this does not define what I am. You are learning to remember. You are returning to yourself. It's not about doing everything right, but about not forgetting your truth in the middle of chaos. And this is the truth. What you are is untouchable, unchanging, innocent, eternal. What you are has no opposite. And that's why nothing that happens can truly touch you. The ego suffers, the body changes, circumstances shift, but yourself remains. And if you can live from that awareness, even when everything around you shakes, you will know a peace that depends on nothing. The peace of God. That peace which surpasses understanding. So next time something seems to threaten you, ask yourself, what part of me is reacting? My ego or myself? And remember, only one is real. Only one can lead you home. Part 4. Peace does not come from changing the world. This is one of the most revolutionary shifts the Course offers us. Peace is not achieved by changing what's external. It's achieved by changing your perception of the external. It's not about fixing the world. It's about seeing it with new eyes. Seek not to change the world, but to change your mind about the world. That phrase can change your life if you truly internalize it, because it frees you from the futile effort of trying to control what you were never meant to control. Other people's behavior, outcomes, circumstances. You might think that when your partner changes, then you'll be at peace. That if your kids were more organized, if your boss were kinder, if your health improved, then you could finally breathe easy. But that's a trap, because there will always be something else that should change. You can have everything in order, job, relationship, stability, and still feel empty. Because peace does not come from having everything under control. Peace comes from letting go of control, and the opposite is also true. You could be living through an uncertain chapter with no clear answers, facing loss or challenges, and still experience deep serenity, because you're connected to a greater certainty, the certainty of who you are. When a relationship ends, the ego says, loss, failure, rejection. The Course invites you to see something else. Change of form, liberation, redirection. Real love doesn't end, it simply changes channels. Love does not need a specific form to continue being love, because love is not limited by bodies or circumstances. It's a state of consciousness. Think about how much time you spend trying to change someone, or wishing the past had been different. That exhaustion is the cost of forgetting that your peace is in your hands, not in anyone else's behavior. Your peace does not depend on whether someone chooses you. Your peace does not depend on resolving a family conflict. Your peace does not depend on whether they text you, approve of you, or invite you. Your peace depends on whether you choose to remember the truth. And the truth is, you don't need anything to change in order to be at peace. You only need to let go of the interpretation that distances you from it. The Course invites you to practice the vision of Christ, to see through the eyes of love. That means looking at a situation and, instead of saying, this is wrong, asking, how can I see this differently? It sounds simple, but it's one of the most radical decisions you can make, because it goes against everything the ego has taught you. When something goes wrong, the ego wants you to panic, to blame, to despair. But the Course offers you a sacred pause, a holy instant, a moment when you can choose peace. You're in an argument. Someone is yelling. You feel like you're losing control. The ego wants you to yell even louder. But you can stop, breathe, and remember. My peace does not depend on this conversation. My peace depends on my inner choice. It's not about being passive. It's about being powerful, from love. About having the power not to react the same old way, to choose from truth, not from fear. And what is that truth? That you are free now. that you don't have to wait for the world to line up perfectly, that you can be happy today, even if those around you don't understand. Because peace doesn't need permission. The peace of God is your right. It's not a reward for good behavior, it's your inheritance. But you have to claim it. Claiming it means dropping the victim role. It means stopping the repetition of this should be different. It means saying, just as it is now, I can be at peace. And maybe it won't be easy at first, because the ego will fight to protect its narrative. But the more you practice this vision, the more your heart opens, and the more you realize that nothing external can give you peace, nor can it take it away. Peace is where it has always been. In your inner decision to remember God, in your surrender, in your willingness to see with love. That is true freedom. That is the practice of the Course. And when you live it, even if nothing outside changes, everything changes. Part 5. The miracle is stopping the reaction to the unreal. This part is one of the most transformative, because this is where the Course truly becomes practical. It's not just about understanding ideas, it's about training your mind to stop reacting automatically to fear. Reaction is the footprint of the ego. Every time you get upset, offended, or anxious, there's a part of you that believes something real is being threatened. But the Course says, it was never real. When you react to a situation, you're actually reacting to an internal story, a thought interpretation that was triggered. You're not seeing the situation as it is. You're seeing your past projected onto it. You're in traffic and someone cuts you off aggressively. Immediately, the ego reacts. They disrespected me. How reckless. This always happens to me. But none of that is real. It's just a story based on separation and attack. You can breathe, look at that scene, and say, this cannot threaten what I am. And in that instant, you break the cycle of reactivity. You have chosen the miracle. Your partner says something that triggers you emotionally. The ego wants you to respond the same way, with reproach, coldness, or hurtful silence. But the Course invites you to pause. Not to react from the wounded persona, to choose to respond from yourself. The miracle is not that everything goes well. The miracle is that even when everything seems to shake, you don't. You remain in peace. Not because the world calmed down, but because you remembered you are not the world. Every time you forgive a mistaken perception, you allow the miracle to happen. And forgiveness in the Course does not mean, I forgive you because I'm more spiritual than you. It means, I understand that what I saw was not real. I projected a story and I was mistaken. There is no guilt, not in me, not in you. The miracle doesn't depend on what others do. It is an inner decision to see through the eyes of love, and that decision is available at every moment. You're waiting for some news. The ego starts spinning scenarios. What if it's bad? What if they reject me? What if it goes wrong? The miracle is saying, nothing real can be threatened. Whatever happens, I remain who I am. A negative comment on social media, a mistake at work, an uncomfortable conversation pending, all of it can become a doorway to the miracle if you choose not to react with fear. That doesn't mean you become a robot without emotions. It means you now know those emotions don't have the power you once thought they did. That they are not absolute truths, but indicators of a mistaken perception you can hand over. And when you hand over that perception, when you release the need to be right, when you stop listening to the voice that wants to punish or defend, something magical happens, peace wraps around you. The miracle is a shift in perception. It's not that the world changes, it's that you change. And from that shift, you start seeing everything differently. Remember, the ego is not looking for solutions, it's looking to maintain conflict. But the Holy Spirit only needs your willingness to show you another way. So when you feel triggered today, don't fight the emotion. Just recognize, I am seeing this through the eyes of the ego. But there is another way. I am willing to see it. That is where the miracle happens. It's not loud, it's not spectacular, but it is deeply transformative. It's the moment you release judgment, fear, interpretation, and allow love to be your guide once again. And that, dear friend, is what the Course came to teach you: to stop reacting to what was never real, and to choose again and again what has always been true. You've made it this far. You have listened, reflected, felt, and if something inside you has shifted even just a little, then our time together has fulfilled its purpose. A Course in Miracles is not a doctrine. It is an experience of undoing, of letting go, of remembering, not to become someone more spiritual, but to release what you never truly were, to undo the layers of fear, defense, and old stories you've carried for years. Let's return to the phrase we began with: nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. This is not poetry. It is a practical instruction. Every time fear arises, repeat it. Every time you feel something or someone can take away your peace, repeat it. Every time you believe you failed, that you're not enough, that something is missing, repeat it. Because this is where real mind training begins. In the small, everyday moments, in the argument with your partner, in the frustration with your kids, in the anxiety about the future, in the guilt about the past. Practicing the Course is living in willingness. Willingness to see things differently. Willingness to not have to be right. Willingness to hand everything over to Spirit. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to be willing. If today you're going through a difficult moment, I invite you not to try to solve everything with your mind. Hand that situation over. Let go of the story. Say honestly, Holy Spirit, I don't know what this means. Show me how to see it. And listen. Listen with your heart, because that's where the Course speaks. Not to your intellect, not to your ego. It speaks to that part of you that still remembers it is light, that it is innocent, that it is eternal. The Course doesn't lead you to understand more, it leads you to trust more, to love more, to let go more, to live without fear. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your presence, your openness, your practice. And most of all, thank you for being willing to remember that love is the only thing that is real. I'll see you in the holy instant. I'll see you in the miracle. I'll see you in the remembrance of who we are.